751, that stands for United States Army. This locomotive was used in the Pearl Harbor Naval Base. It was constructed in 1942 by General Allaire. It served in Hawaii for between 30 and 40 years before being retired in the early 1970s. Within a few years, it was transported to 48 states and was purchased by our railroad and brought to our location here, where it began service not long after that. A similar story goes for our open car, the car everyone is riding in today. This car was also constructed in 1942 for use on the U.S. Navy's railways, specifically the Oahu Railway. This car was constructed as a flatbed freight car and was delivered to us in the state it was built. In order to carry passengers, we had to redeck the car, add benches, railings, and a roof, and it was then ready to carry passengers. And that brings us to our little red caboose. This caboose was constructed in 1874 as a small wooden boxcar for the New Jersey Southern Railroad. This railroad was rolled into the Pennsylvania Railroad. It was rolled into the Central Railroad of New Jersey not long after that, and continued to run as a boxcar for about 30 years. By the turn of the 20th century, the Central Railroad of New Jersey had decided that this small boxcar was no longer economical to operate in freight service. Instead of setting fire to this car and collecting all the metal parts that did not burn, they decided to convert this car into a caboose to save some money. That conversion occurred in 1902, and this car continued to run as a caboose until 1972. In 1972, this car made its last run on a local freight out of Red Neck, New Jersey, on the Central Railroad of New Jersey Southern Division, only a mile or two west of here. After that run, this car was retired, and instead of being dismantled, was promptly purchased by our railroad. It was transported here not long after its purchase. Throughout its 98-year operating career on standard gauge railroads, it had to be converted to a narrow gauge railroad car to be used on our railroad. You may hear me using terms like standard gauge and narrow gauge. That simply means the distance between each rail. Our railroad is a narrow gauge railroad. That means there is 3 feet between each railhead. Most of our railroads in this country are standard gauge, which means there are exactly 8.5 inches between each railhead. In a few moments, we'll be passing our big red car barn off to the left-hand side of our train. Inside this red car barn, we house most of our unique equipment. Inside our barn, we house most of our steam locomotives, including one of the last narrow-gauge Shay type locomotives left in the world. A steam locomotive built in Ireland in the mid-1800s. A presidential car for the Pennsylvania Railroad, among other pieces. In a few moments, we'll be passing our barnyard, as we call it. You will note our Canadian National Coach. This car has been located inside our car barn since the spring. We decided to pull it out, and here it is. This car was originally originally constructed for the Newfoundland Railway, and that road was eventually taken over by the Canadian National Railway. Thus, it is displaying Canadian National Herald. On the left, you will see a green passenger car built for the Kawapaka Western Railway, and a black coal car constructed for the East Broad Top Railroad. Our station building, which we are passing on the right, was constructed in the early 1900s for use on the Central Railroad of New Jersey's Freehold branch between Freehold, New Jersey and Manawha, New Jersey. When that branch line was eventually abandoned and the tracks were removed, instead of dismantling the station, it was saved by our organization and transported to our location here. Our ticket office has a similar story. It was constructed in the early 1940s for use as the Allenwood station on the Pennsylvania Railroad. About 25 years later, that was abandoned.